Joining us now, retail expert Kate Hardcastle. Kate, so good to have you on the programme. And of course, John Lewis, so beloved of so many of us. You know, we virtually live for the Christmas ad. We feel as if it's something you can set your watch by. It's a place of tranquility. We feel a certain kind of loyalty to it after a whole lifetime shopping there. Sometimes we even aspire to it when we can't afford to shop there. But one of the things that bound us to John Lewis so passionately was never knowingly undersold. That gem, that genius of an idea and a slogan. And Dame Sharon got rid of it. Tell me about that.
Well, hi, good afternoon, and thanks for having me. I think it's a very intriguing story because John Lewis, as you've mentioned, have been a bellwether of the high street for many years, very trusted, very traditional. And when Dame Sharon came to roll, there was a lot of questions about her not being from a retail background. Now, I personally don't think that's an issue if the strategy is right. But there's been a lot of road blocks along the way, like COVID, things that the business couldn't have planned for, which has challenged them, particularly as we saw that rise and move to online, and perhaps their IT systems at John Lewis not really keeping up to the demand of what was required at the time. But also there's been some surprising, shall we say, developments in terms of Dame Sharon's strategy. And I think the biggest kind of clarity I would give is in retail particularly, but in consumer-facing businesses, if you're part of a big change plan, you have to deliver short-term instant deliverables as well as doing the big thinking. Now, Dame Sharon's big thinking was about trying to get the business in profit, in healthier profit, making sure that it had a good future, looking beyond retail into its financial services, even rental, etc. But there wasn't enough on the short-term deliverables. And I think there were too many sound bites, therefore, of news that seemed to be poor or challenging or not what the customer wanted. And that included the removal of that never knowingly undersold, the idea that you could go in and pretty much trust that you were going to get all the value you wanted. However, that said, contesting that ideal with the brand was always a challenge if you did find a cheaper brand elsewhere. And on top of that, it wasn't helpful when we were seeing periods of things like Black Fridays where they were in a constant battle on price. And this is a brand that needs to be so much more than price.
I know, but you think how priceless a slogan that people could practically embroider on a tea towel is. You can't buy that kind of well-known familiarity. You can't buy that trust. There must have been some clever, creative way of packaging that up to say something like never knowingly undersold, brackets except on Black Friday, or never knowingly undersold, that's why you love us, we're still doing our best, or something or other to make you feel that same kind of surge of loyalty. I mean, one of the things that people always said about John Lewis, and unfortunately it doesn't seem to me that they say it as much anymore, is that the staff were incredibly well informed, so that if you asked about a bra, or you asked about a microwave, or you asked about children's shoes when they were going back to school, whatever you asked about, they would be the people who really knew. They could guide you through. You know, you felt that you were in capable hands, that they were on your side, but you also knew they were on their own side because they were partners in the business. So they cared extra about whether you were pleased and whether you would come back. And this was a tremendous kind of symbiotic relationship with John Lewis and John Lewis staff. But some seems to have dissipated over the last, 10 years, let's say, something like that?
You know, culture's everything in a business. And when it's one like John Lewis, it has to be there. And as you said, they had this very unique offering in that the colleagues in the business owned the business. And they were the ones that, of course, believed in the vision and the value most of the time because they had to. It was theirs. I think there was a lot of change in a small amount of time. And that's made it a quite challenging cultural shift for many in the organisation. There were the store closures as well, which caused a lot of concern. 16 stores closed over a very short period of time. And I think it's, again, that shrewdness of trying to make sure that the colleagues in the business understand how you're trying to deliver to make change and how that change is going to improve. And, you know, some of this comes down to very sophisticated strategic planning, you know, using the brand, leveraging the brand and all of the trust that was there to go into different industries like finance and rental. That seems a big leap, but makes good sense. However, if you have people on the store floor interacting with the customers every day, they have to feel confident of that change. And therefore, it comes down to really small elements, but important ones that I think perhaps weren't there. And that communication and are not looking like you're an austere organization that always has to know what's going on and what's right, but reflecting authentically the needs of your consumers, talking to them about what they want, hearing them, listening, and making quick changes so that the customers and the colleagues felt loved. And I think that's an okay thing to say about this brand. They needed to feel loved from the brand. That was the appeal.
And is it true that Dame Sharon came within a whisker of getting rid of the model, which was that the people who work in the business have shares in the business and it's a kind of profit share, and so everybody's a part of this cooperative, that she was just about to push through a change, but in the nick of time they stopped it?
In all the summaries this morning, one paper told this about the almost time that Sharon gave everyone a heart attack, because there was this concern that the very structure of the organisation was going to come to question, and that they might look for outside investment, which of course would change that very disciplined, very unique element of John Lewis. Now, it depends, honestly, Vanessa, which take you have on this. There's some say, no, it was a complete miscommunication. That's not what we needed. We need brand partners and we need to look into expansion in different areas. And of course, that's going to take investment, right place, right time. And there are some say, no, absolutely. There was the desire perhaps to look into changing the model completely, which of course created much concern earlier in the year. So yeah, I think it depends which paper you read, but I certainly think in terms of the legacy over the last 5 years, you can look on the positive. This is for someone who steered through some of the most challenging times in retail. We're in the biggest evolution. You and I know that. I think we've been discussing retail for over a decade now. Not that I like to admit our age, but this is the biggest change we've seen in 40, 50 years time, and still it rages on and continues. So, you know, keeping your head above water in any times in retail, it's not as easy as it looks. It's not. It's always like the person singing in the band. People that walk up to the drummer and think, oh, I could do that job. But people always walk up to the singer and think, yeah, I could do your job. I could sing better. Because I think that's the thing. We all think we can retail because we shop every single week. It's harder than it looks. But you could also then look at the flip side of it and say, what an opportunity. What could have been done with that brand over the 5 years? How could it have developed? What could it have done to really make the difference? It could have seen it just explode into just another era, using all the strengths it had in messaging. And
God, I feel as if I can hear my late father talking to me from beyond the grave, and I'm sure I've quoted him at you endlessly. Every time we ever speak, I always think about my dad, who was in the garment business, who supplied John Lewis sometimes, what he would have said about, you know, you get somebody in this day and age, in this era, into the store, they're in the store. For God's sake, have the stuff to sell them. Don't be telling them we haven't got it here. You can go home and look at it online and buy it online. Have it there and have some kind of special offer and somebody who's in charge of the wallpaper that can show you which one would look good and which one isn't good for the bathroom. Have all that going on. Make it seem as if there's an event going on in the place that you want to be a part of. You've got your money in your pocket, or you haven't really. You're using your credit card. You shouldn't be, but you are there. Don't let the customer walk out without buying anything. That's my dad from beyond the grave. Listen, always a pleasure, Kate. Thank you so much. Delightful to have you on the programme.